If your confidence disappears the moment something goes wrong, one bad call, one harsh comment, 1 month where the numbers drop, then what you have is not confidence. What you have is a state that is entirely dependent on your environment staying favorable. And the problem with that is that your environment will never stay favorable indefinitely, which means your confidence will always be temporary, always fragile, always one bad day away from collapsing. This video is about changing that fully, making confidence something you operate from by default and not something you have to rebuild every time circumstances change. Here's what we're going to cover today in this video. First, we're going to cover what externally sourced confidence actually is and why it's designed to collapse. Second, we're going to cover why the standard advice of fake it till you make it, take more action, get more wins, doesn't fix the root problem. And the third thing we're going to cover today is the exact internal shift that makes confidence your default. By the end of this video, you'll know precisely why your confidence keeps disappearing and what to do about it. For most of my life, my confidence was built entirely on what other people thought of me. In professional football, I was only as good as my last performance. If my coaches praised me, if my teammates respected what I was doing on the pitch, I felt confident. I'd play freely. I'd make decisions without hesitating. I felt like I belonged. But the moment I made one mistake, one bad pass, one poor decision, it was gone, like completely. I'd spend the rest of the session second guessing every action. And the more I tried to get it back, the further away it felt. I thought this was a football problem. I thought the environment was the issue, the pressure, the coaches, the stakes. So when I left football and got into business, I assumed it would be different. But a completely different reality hit me, and it wasn't. In my early business, the same pattern ran identically. A good month, positive feedback from clients, momentum building, and I'd feel it. The confidence would be there. I'd back myself, take risks, and move decisively. Then one bad week, one client who pushed back, 1 month where the numbers dropped, and everything I'd built would disappear overnight. I was at a 2 out of 10, and I didn't understand why, because objectively, nothing catastrophic had happened. The business was still running, the feedback was still mostly positive, but one negative input, and I was back at zero. What I eventually understood and what changed everything, at least for me, is that I hadn't built confidence at all. I had built a dependency. My emotional state was entirely outsourced to my environment, which meant my environment controlled me completely. Once I understood that, the fix became so much clearer to me. The problem was never the environment, but the problem was where I was sourcing my confidence from. And this is what most people call confidence and why it doesn't work. Externally sourced confidence is a state that is contingent on emotional inputs, compliments, results, validation from other people, momentum. When those inputs are present, the state is available. When they are absent or negative, the state disappears. Think of it like a Wi Fi signal. When you're close to the router, when the environment is providing strong positive signals, the connection is strong. You feel it, you operate from it. But the moment you move away from the router, one mistake, one criticism, one setback, the signal drops. And you're operating on no connection at all. The problem is that most people, when their confidence drops, go looking for a better signal, more external validation, a better result to point to, someone to tell them they're on the right track. And that works temporarily. The signal comes back, but the dependency remains. And the next time the environment shifts, it drops again. This is the cycle I see with almost every entrepreneur I work with and who are trapped in. And they're trapped in it because nobody ever told them that what they're calling confidence isn't confidence, but rather a borrowed state. And borrowed states always need to be returned. Your subconscious mind runs approximately 95% of your behavior, your decisions, and your emotional responses automatically. The confidence you feel or don't feel is almost entirely a product of what your subconscious belief is true about you, what the deeper system has been programmed to accept as real. External validation never touches that system, it only touches the surface. And this is why one mistake collapses it so completely. When your confidence is externally sourced, it is being held up entirely by environmental evidence. Every compliment, every win, every positive result is a brick in a structure that has no foundation. It looks solid from the outside. It might even feel solid from the inside until one piece of contrary evidence arrives. And when that evidence arrives, one mistake, one criticism, one result that doesn't match the narrative, it doesn't just remove one brick, it removes the logic that was holding all the bricks together. Because if the evidence was the foundation and the evidence is now contradicting the structure, the whole thing has to come down, which is exactly why high performers who appear confident in front of other people can be completely undone by a single internal doubt. The external performance is very real, while the internal foundation isn't there. And this is also why the standard advice doesn't work. So, for example, take more action. Yes, but action taking from a fragile state produces fragile results. And get more wins. Yes, but wins built on an unstable identity creates a ceiling and not a foundation. And the last one, fake it till you make it, the most dangerous advice of all, because it trains the gap between the external performance and the internal reality to widen indefinitely. Eventually, that gap becomes self sabotage. None of these fix the foundation. They just add more bricks to a structure with no ground underneath it. So let me tell you the distinction that changed everything for me. Confidence is not something you feel, but it's something you are. Those are completely different problems with two completely different solutions. If confidence is something you feel, the solution is to find better inputs, better circumstances, more validation, more wins, more signal from the environment. If confidence is something you are, if it is a property of your identity rather than a response to your environment, then the solution is to change who you are at the level where identity actually lives, which is at the subconscious level where the self concept is held. One of these solutions is temporary, the other solution is permanent. So, this is exactly what I did to build confidence at the right level and what I now help the entrepreneurs I work with do. The first the shift was sourcing confidence internally rather than externally. This sounds simple, but it is not necessarily easy. What it meant practically was learning to evaluate my performance against my own standards rather than other people's responses, while not ignoring feedback, but seeing feedback as a data point, separating the data from the verdict. Someone else's opinion of my performance tells me something, but it does not tell me who I am. In football terms, a coach can tell me I made a bad decision. That is very useful information, but it does not mean I'm a bad player. One piece of data is not an identity. The moment I started making that distinction consistently, the external inputs lost their power to determine my internal state. They became information I could use rather than verdicts I had to absorb. The second shift was learning to stay in a functional state when something went wrong. I wasn't trying to pretend nothing went wrong or performing confidence I didn't feel, but instead holding the image as a data point rather than as a definition. One mistake does not mean you or me are a failure. It means you or me made a mistake. The subconscious, if left unmanaged, will take that mistake and run it as evidence of a broader identity claim. For example, I always do this. This is just who I am. I'm not good enough for this level. That is where the collapse comes from and not the mistake. The story the subconscious attaches to the mistake is the mistake. Learning to interrupt that story to catch the generalization before it becomes a belief is one of the highest level leverage skills available to any entrepreneur. The third shift was updating the subconscious image itself, because the two shifts, the first two, are conscious level tools. They help, they are necessary, but they operate on the output of a system that hasn't changed yet. The deeper work, the work that moves me from a 2 to a 9 out of 10, was going into the subconscious directly and updating the self concept at the root. The image of who I was, what I was capable of, what level I was allowed to operate at. When that image changed, the confidence didn't feel different. It just was different. It stopped being something I had to generate and became something I operated from automatically. That is the difference between confidence as a feeling and confidence as a default state. I want to show you what this looks like when someone else applies it, because my story only proves it for one person, but I want you to see proof from other people as well. So Dominic came to me with the same pattern: high external performance, internal fragility. Every time results started building, he'd find a way to pull back because his subconscious self concept hadn't caught up with his external results. We updated the image at the subconscious level, and in 8 weeks, he doubled his income. The confidence wasn't some cosmetic thing. It changed the decisions he made, the prices he charged, the risks he was willing to take. The other entrepreneur I helped, Carlo, applied a single shift in how he showed up to sales calls, where he no longer negotiated from the old self concept. He generated 11,000 euros in 5 days, same market, same offer, different internal image. The external results are always a downstream of the internal program. If what I've described in this video sounds familiar, the confidence that appears when things are going well and disappears the moment one thing goes wrong, you are in the right place. That pattern has a name, it has a location, and it has a solution that isn't more external validation, more wins, or more discipline. The location is your self concept. The solution is updating it at the level where it actually lives. If you click the first link in the description, you'll get to the 7 Figure Subconscious Roadmap. It is 4 free recordings built to begin that process at the root level where the self concept is held. So download the 7 Figure Subconscious Roadmap for free now in the first link in the description. And I'm looking forward to hearing about your future success.